in conversation over a welcome drink between Mrs. Radha Bhatia, Chairperson Bird Group, and C.J. Collins, Senior Representative to South Asia Federal Aviation Administration. With her vast experience and long-standing work in the aviation industry, Mrs. Bhatia was quick to gather a few friends from various verticals in aviation for a brainstorming session on 14th August 2015. For us to form a new chapter of WAI, we needed a minimum of 10 members, and we invited 15 women professionals for this meeting. We were pleasantly surprised to see a full forum as all invitees attended the meeting. Mrs. Radha Bhatia was unanimously elected as the president of WAI India chapter. She has inspired more than 500 girls across India, showed them the path of various verticals in aviation, and successfully convinced other leading aviation corporations like Air India, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, AirAsia, GMR Group, KPMG, and many others to take this initiative forward. A recipient of many prestigious accolades, she also holds the distinction of being awarded the Outstanding Women Entrepreneur of the Year award for 9 consecutive years. Neelam Pratap Rudy, Vice President of WAI India Chapter, is an alumnus of Sophia College, is a philanthropist and an avid golfer. Nupur R. Chablani, a communication specialist in the travel and aviation domain, was appointed as the Secretary of WAI India Chapter. Captain Nivedita Bhasin, one of the founder member, is the youngest woman pilot in the history of civil aviation to command a commercial jet aircraft. Captain Shweta Singh, Deputy Chief Flight Operations Inspector at DGCA, the youngest one in her field. Kiran Jain, MD Wow Air, one of the few women in India at her position. Tanima Nigam, Area General Manager at Air India, fought against all odds to become an aeronautical engineer. Ranjana Kaul, partner at Dua Associates, advocates and solicitors. Shefali Juneja, Director, Ministry of Civil Aviation, is an alumnus from the prestigious Lady Sri Ram College and St. Stephen's. Neelam Matthews, Senior Aviation Journalist, who has been writing for the aviation beat for over a decade. Captain Preeti Singh, a pilot by profession who dared to pursue her dream. On the occasion of International Civil Aviation Day, December 7th, 2015, U.S. Ambassador to India Richard Verma and Secretary Rajiv Nayan Chaube, Ministry of Civil Aviation, jointly announced the inauguration of the Women in Aviation International WAI India Chapter. The Ambassador and the Secretary congratulated the charter members of the WAI India Chapter and reinforced their cooperation towards civil aviation, the empowerment of women and India's skill development initiatives. The Ambassador remarked that it is important that young Indian girls see these women in their aviation careers and see that aviation is a viable career path to pursue. Thereafter began the journey of the Indian chapter. On 8th March 2016, Women in Aviation WAI India Chapter celebrated International Women's Day along with the then Directorate General of Civil Aviation DGCA, Ms. M. Satyavati, with an interactive discussion on visibility for women in aviation. It was the first time such a topic was discussed within the industry. 2017 International Women's Day saw the launch of the Women in Aviation International India chapter slogan by the then Minister of Civil Aviation, Mr. Ashok Gajapati Raju. The slogan very aptly was Beti ki Udan, Desh ka Swabhiman. Shaista Waiz, an Afghan American pilot and the first certified civilian pilot, became the youngest woman to fly around the world. WAI India chapter supported her during her stopover in Mumbai. The endeavor was to encourage young girls from the economically weaker sections to dream big. The first year of WAI India chapter, we reached out to young schoolgirls at 5 locations. The second year, we reached out to young girls at 11 locations. And this year, we have concluded the event again at 11 cities. This has all been done under the flagship celebration of the Girls in Aviation Day. The journey has been possible only because of the support that we got from corporates like Lockheed Martin, AirAsia, KPMG, Blue Dart, BIAL, GMR, and Airports Authority of India. For global security and aerospace company Lockheed Martin, the advancement of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education is a critical focus for the company. Dedicated to the advancement of scientific discovery, Lockheed Martin's partnership with Women in Aviation India chapter began in 2016 with the support of an early edition of Girls in Aviation. Since then, both the partnership with WAI India chapter and the Girls in Aviation Day initiative have blossomed, with young women in many other cities like Vishakhapatnam, Imphal, and Goa benefiting from the initiative, which seeks to broaden their horizons as to potential careers and pursuits in the aerospace industry. We are delighted to share that in last 3 years, WAI India chapter has indeed been a flight to success. Our membership has constantly been growing and spreading pan-India. We have touched the lives of more than 5,000 girls across India, with a special focus on those from underprivileged background. Some of them had never even seen an airport before. We have reached out to girls belonging to NCC, government schools across India, and NGOs focusing on education. WAI India helped Dreams Soar, an NGO run by Shaista Waiz, reach out to the Indian girls. But our journey has just begun. We have great plans for the future, especially with the massive growth projected in the aviation industry in India and worldwide. We want girls in India to be the wind beneath the wings of their growth. छू लेंगी आसमान भारत की बेटियां.
Good evening and welcome everyone to our webinar today called Connecting the Dots Recovery for Aviation and Women Hospitality. Women in Aviation International India Chapter is a non-profit organization dedicated to the encouragement and advancement of women in all aviation career fields and interests. The India chapter has been working relentlessly for the last 5 years for the cause with help and support from our main sponsors, Lockheed Martin India, along with Airports Authority of India. Along the way, we have touched the lives of hundreds of young girls over 30 cities across India, inspiring them to take up a career in aviation. why India chapter has also been sponsoring young deserving girls from the underprivileged background. Let me now introduce you to the lady who has been pivotal to the India chapter. She now has over 50 years of experience in aviation and is the president of the Y India chapter. Mrs. Radha Bhatia. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nupur. I'm sure everybody would have enjoyed the movie of Women in Aviation. Greetings not only from these 5 or 6 members who are
Yeah.
today, but also from the entire group of Women in Aviation. Wishing you all a very happy new year. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and especially the new generation who is curious to know more about aviation and what are the options and possibilities going to be. Today, as you see, we have 6 founder members to take this webinar forward. Let me introduce you now the first speaker of this evening. There could be nobody else but the Secretary General of ICAO, Mrs. Fang Lui. It is a privilege because she is one of the first women to take that chair. On to Mrs. Lewis. After Mrs. Lewis, I have Mrs. Shifali Juneja, another member from the Civil Aviation India who has gone and joined the ICAO as an Indian representative. Welcome, Shifali. As Mr. Pradeep Karola regrets the last minute due to some pressing meetings he has been kind enough to ask Mrs. Usha Padi. Mrs. Usha Padi, I think I know you for the last 4 or 5 years, since the time you are in civil aviation. And you are always in touch with me whenever we are doing a Women in Aviation event. And I'm glad that you have joined in today. Not the least and the most important for today's evening is Dr. Naresh Trehan. Dr. Naresh Trehan, welcome to this webinar. I think we will all be very keen to listen to you because you are not only a great cardiologist, cardiovascular doctor, but you also created Escorts, the first heart hospital, and after that, the Medicity, though I think it has become a world famous institute with 1,500 beds. We have now Ms. Kiran Jain, who is one of those soldiers who is creating a new airport, that's the Noida Airport, as the CEO of the Noida Airport. And we would like to hear that in spite of the fact that aviation is heavily suffering, what is your plans for future? With all that, not the least important and the most important is one of my member, Mrs. Chitra Sarkar. Mrs. Chitra Sarkar has a long history. I think we can spend the whole evening telling what we have been doing, but the last, I think she was, and the most important is that she was the area director of US and that part of the world, who would be giving a vote of thanks. And to take this event forward is Mrs. Ranjana Kaul, another founder member of Women in Aviation India chapter, who has done her law degree from McGill University in Aviation on space law. And I think I hand it over to her to moderate this evening. On to you, and the whole floor opens to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bhatia, for all those wonderful introductions to eminent panelists. And let me take this forward and let's just come down to the brass tacks here. We are now in the second year of the pandemic. Nobody has a clue about how long it will go on, what is the end date, and WHO warns us that there are more to come. Now, in the midst of all this gloom, as far as individuals are concerned, as much as the Grim Reaper has taken lives of ordinary men, women, children, the fact of the matter is that we have somehow adapted and got on with the business of life and living. And in great measure, our ability to adapt is because we owe a great deal to the medical fraternity. And so, Dr. Trehan, to you and to everyone with you, all of you across the country, thank you ever so much. And above all, for you and your colleagues who are on television on every single day, answering questions, clearing doubts, and relentlessly telling people about COVID appropriate behavior. And finally, since none of us had the option, we've understood that value. And here we are, the first webinar of this year. And while people have got on with it, some cautious optimism, individually, whenever the lockdown has opened and eased up, we have seen businesses creating safe environment to receive customers. But when we look around ourselves and we look at our economy, or the economy of the other parts of the world, you will rarely find a country that is racing ahead in development and GDP numbers. When you look at sectors, the aviation sector is today standing on the edge of a precipice. For sure, the pandemic has not been the only reason why the international air transportation sector and the domestic air transportation sector is in such dire straits. The pandemic has actually come on the back of critical events that have shaken the sector to its roots. These are the two devastating crashes. The first is the Indonesian airline crash, and then the second is the Ethiopian airline crash, killing everybody on board, including the crew. That has resulted, I think it was a year and a half ago or so, global grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX 8. Indeed, our own airports are currently hosting a number of those aircrafts. In this entire grim picture, what has happened is that we have only recently learned, in fact, this morning's news, that the Boeing has engaged in a settlement with the US government in context to the criminal proceedings for a sum of $2.5 billion. That in itself has no impact whatsoever on civil cases that are going on in the United States, seeking compensation for the aggrieved families who lost their members in these two terrible air crashes. In our part of the world, in our own country, all of this has been exacerbated by the collapse of two private airlines. So here we are, and the cumulative impact on global transportation has been unprecedented. A recent report of the IATA, in fact, a few days ago, says that 2021, the global transportation industry is going to continue to book losses, that it's likely that the domestic services will improve as opposed to the international markets, but the passenger volume, it won't be before 2024, they predict, that they will come back to the level of 2019. So for where I'm standing, for me, post-COVID is a mirage. And I would much rather just deal with the here and now. So with your permission, let's open this discussion. The proposition for discussion is the recovery and the revival and a sustainable revival of international and domestic civil aviation sectors. The challenge is to find, to the extent possible and implementable, a predictable mechanism by which this resurrection, if you like to call it that, and the recovery can happen step by step. And it must necessarily be backed by a return of passenger confidence, because without the passenger, there is nothing that you can do with the industry, no matter what package and revival packages and economic packages you might give. We have had, and all of us have had hindsight experience and knowledge, but for the panelists over here, they are hands-on in the true sense of the word. And I would now like to invite the Secretary General of the International Civil Aviation Organization. The ICAO is the international regulator for international civil aviation. Dr. Fang Liu, may I request you to take the floor and share with us and tell us how it's been and what is the road ahead. Over to you, Dr. Fang Liu.
Thank you, Dr. Rajana Kaur.
Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm delighted to be participating here today along women who are so directly helped to realize a more gender responsive aviation industry in India. World leaders have long recognized that human rights, with women's rights at the center, need to be a key part of our broader collective and global efforts for sustainable development. It's in this respect that the United Nations Agenda 2030 is truly a people's agenda with commitment to gender equality, which is suitably prominent, comprehensive, and cross-cutting. This doesn't mean, however, that gender inequalities aren't still deeply rooted in our societies and industries. While it is becoming more common to see women in positions of power and prominence in both the public and private sectors, we still remain underrepresented in most professional leadership and decision-making categories. And in the aviation sector, more specifically, which is highly technical and specialized, there's still lots of work ahead to address the gender gap, even as we continue to respond to a global pandemic. With the new norm we've been faced with from COVID-19, our sector has been presented with unique challenges in terms of sustaining and recovering global operations. Here in India, for example, you've suffered significant 50 and 60% downturns in your domestic and international operations, respectively, and ICAO is monitoring similar impacts all over the world. Challenges of this extent and degree, however, are also key opportunities for innovation and renewal, permitting air transport leaders to realign their organizations and priorities to promote the more equal representation of women in leadership and other senior positions. Women in aviation must therefore be prepared and confident and ready to bring their talents and ideas to the forefront to help lead the air transport, tourism, and hospitality sectors to the new features which await them. As medical conditions permit, we must therefore work to accelerate the sector's recovery in every world region and to bring prosperity and sustainability back to the countries and populations who rely on air transport and tourism for their basic economic survival. This will likely be my last opportunity to address you in my capacity as ICAO Secretary General, as my second term in this role will conclude this coming August. I wish to emphasize how deeply rewarding it's been for me to participate in events such as yours and to help lead ICAO and our sector in addressing gender equality more effectively. It's my firm hope that I've been able to inspire both the current and the next generations of India's women in aviation to aspire to great heights, and that you'll set no limits for yourselves in terms of your future challenges and ambitions. Thank you again for inviting me here today, and I greatly look forward to today's panel discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lu. On that point, Dr. Lu, may I ask you about your experience and your understanding of the challenge and the way ahead through this last 1 year, and the initiatives that you have taken as Secretary General to kickstart the aviation that had come to a grinding halt immediately after, I think it was after March during April. But tell us about that journey, if you will.
Thank you. As you just mentioned, and COVID-19 is an unprecedented crisis for the whole world. And our aviation sector is one of the sectors hit the most, together with our tourism sector, I believe. And then, since this is unprecedented, so ICAO immediately to address this issue, since you know our sector has another fundamental characteristics, that is global harmonized network and supported by international standards. And then, because the nature of this crisis, our global network is broken. And then each country has taken different measures in order to cope with this unprecedented pandemic. And ICAO, as a forum for international cooperation and also for international solutions to address this kind of crisis. So that's why we took very swift actions. First of all, we assist the member states to maintain some operations in order to bring the people back to their destinations. And it's families and also these passengers. And then it's also very important that we to help sustain global operations for the supply chains, like medical supplies, and which are really needed, and also to bring the foods and also this kind of medical equipments and also medical products and also other very urgent needed products to the destination and to the people they really needing the most. And then they also immediately to announce adjustment for the countries be able to deviate from the standards and then announce it to the member states to ensure continuously safety, security. As you all know, this is the foundation for our air operations. And also our governing body also takes leadership, and to develop the so-called CAT report, you all know, and supported strongly by the Secretariat and by the industry. And in June, we issued the first this kind of CAT report with the recommendations and the guidance. And then immediately, we also developed global implementation roadmap of this report, which carried out by all our 7 regional offices, working hands on hands with local aeronautical authorities in each region, and through the webinars, through all this. And then in November, second CAT report issued, and we addressed some permanent issues like possible testing if the states would like to use this kind of tools. And then we provide a sort of a procedure. And before the CAT 2, we also developed so-called public health corridor concepts in order for the member states to facilitate these operations in these special circumstances and to keep the balance for the healthy and also for the operations. And now we are working on the CAT 3. As you all know, now vaccination is available. We need to transport these vaccines to the states all over the world. It's a huge task, and also it's a very important task, if I may use it, which can determine faster or slow recovery of our industry as well as the global economy. So that's why it's extremely important. ICAO now will work very closely with other international organizations like WHO, like World Customs Organizations, like World Tourism Organizations, like United Nations in headquarters, and also, of course, various industry organizations, and also our stakeholders, member states. So like India, like other states. So we work very closely in order we can fulfill this task, as we can say, one central task for our global sector. So I'm very pleased to have this meeting join you. And one of the important things I want to say, it's unprecedented challenge. There's no doubt it. But it's also golden opportunity for all of us, in particular for the gender equality. As we know, when the aviation resume, and we would like to see this sector is better than before, and in all sense. So, and we believe the young generation, in particular female young generation, with such talented knowledge and also their competencies, joining our sector, which can provide a golden opportunity for all of us to advance further our global sector and to support United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and to help us to build better world. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Liu. Let me take that to you, Shefali, if I may. Shefali, are you on?
Yes, thank you.
Right. So, Shefali, you are the sort of link between our domestic regulator, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, and the international regulator. You are the representative of India, and may I say how proud I am that you're the first woman to be so nominated by the government. So tell me how you translate what the Secretary General has just said. How does it get translated into our national regulatory mechanism such that that becomes implementable both for at every aspect of the aviation sector in our country? What is your role in the whole matter?
First of all, I'd like to begin by saying very good evening to everyone present and listening to this webinar. And thank you to Radha Bhatia and her team for organizing this webinar and having Dr. Fang Lu, who truly represents empowerment of women And I see that very difficult and challenging task that she is doing very well in ICAO. Has proved to be a excellent Secretary General, and there is no doubt that in this particular challenge of the pandemic that we are facing the world over, she has led ICAO in a very strategic manner through a lot of work that Secretariat has carried out on its shoulders as well as through CART. And I think it is absolutely relevant here to mention the fact that ICAO Secretariat ICAO Secretariat has been carrying out a whole lot of webinars to educate the civil aviation authorities through the various regional ICAO offices, as well as they have constituted what is known as the Aviation Recovery Task Force, in which I have the privilege of representing India. India is one of the members of this CART, and we have been able to draw out what is known as an emergency reaction operation measures to implement the rebooting of aviation, to so to say. We all are looking at how we are able to ensure that aviation recovers as early as possible, and the kind of safety regulations and the security aspects to it are very, very important. So the conversations that we've been having in ICAO are largely led by the fact that there is a kind of a polarization among states. Some states are of the view that they do not want to go for a risk-based approach. They want to go for a zero-risk approach. So they are not interested in opening borders or reducing quarantines. What they are keen is that they want that, first of all, maybe vaccination should come in a big way before they enable air travel. While there are other group of states who are interested in starting certain amount of air travel, largely based on testing protocols. So the whole debate that took place in the CART has been that how we can have a layered approach through testing protocols, and we are able to reduce the number of days for quarantines so that it can enable travelers to start their air travel. Now, the problem here is that different parts of the world have got different intensity of COVID-19. And naturally, the states where the impact of COVID-19 has been reduced to some extent are not so keen to immediately open their borders. So what we were able to do in ICAO is, with the help of a lot of a medical team, which is known as CAPSCA, which is basically the collaborative arrangement for prevention of and management of public health. So this consists of a world-renowned aviation specialists, and they have come out with the entire testing manual, so to say, which they have evaluated the kind of tests that are available for different types of tests that are available, and how quickly can we repeat a test to ensure that we can reduce the quarantines. So going by this, we had UK come up with a new policy called a test for release, which could start as early as after 5 days of quarantine. There could be another test, which would enable people to no longer have any confinement, and they could actually start, going up out of their confinement and reduce the quarantines. So this, unfortunately, to some extent, has been affected by the new mutation of COVID-19 that has emerged in UK. So while on one hand, we are trying to, the medical science is trying to find out ways of dealing with coronavirus, the coronavirus is also emerging in different mutations. So the challenge is increasing, but at the same time, we are not falling behind, and we have the third CART, the phase 3 of CART starting in this month of January, where we are going to seriously talk about vaccinations and how in the coming times we can use vaccination to start opening the air routes in a bigger manner. Thank you, Rajna.
Shifali, there is one question I'd follow up I'd like to ask you. In context to the public health corridor, the mechanism that Dr. Liu spoke about, there is a mention of National Air Transport Facilitation Committee. Are you aware whether India has set up such a committee, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, and also the cross-sectoral coordination committee? What is that about? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we do have a facilitation committee. In fact, India is a member of the facilitation panel of ICAO. And while I was in the ministry, I happened to be a member of that panel. This facilitation committee is having cross-border, I mean, cross-ministerial representation from the medical health persons. And India happens to be also a member of CAPSCA. So India has been attending these meetings with the public health authorities, and they have already set up the facilitation committee, as you are saying, and they are very much corresponding with ICAO, filing the differences where India
Hmm.
has implemented certain uh, terms and conditions that were laid out in CART, and how India has not done it the way it has been ordained by this ICAO, but have done it in a different manner. So we are very much very uh, regular, I would say, adherent of ICAO's documents. And yes, we do have a facilitation committee, very much.
Okay, thanks, Shefali. Dr. Trehan, may I come to you now? Um, Especially in context to this incredible ecosystem that you have created to do with patients that come to you from overseas and also domestically, which makes that, in any case, that stressful experience of being ill and then having to go somewhere for treatment as simple and as easy and as without difficulties for that patient and his family that may be coming. Can you tell us how this happened and what is the mechanism and which are the other related sectors, though maybe not medical, but the other surround mechanisms that you have put in place so successfully?
So first of all, good evening and thank you for this pleasurable experience surrounded by the most accomplished women, so articulate. It makes me proud. But the good thing is my wife is not on the panel. She'd be extremely jealous. So now the point is that our association with this terrible pandemic actually goes back in the very early days when the 14 Italians were detected in Rajasthan, and then the government decided to send them to us, and we were early responders. And with that, we accumulated a huge amount of experience in what are the nuances of when people get sick, how to get them out of it, all that stuff. Then because nobody knew anything about it except that we were learned on the job. And over the period of the first 2-3 weeks, we could hone in on the real protocol in which the patients should be slotted and when they should be moved to what facility for with what intensive treatment that they needed. So which is very gratifying because we have had huge success in saving some of the worst cases also, which is a nice thing to happen. Then we were consulted by the Ministry of Civil Aviation on how to open the aviation sector. So we applied a lot of our mind to say how we could really get onto the plane before you entered the airport to the point you had got into the plane, from the time all the behavior patterns that were recommended, and so on and so forth, and how you could get out of the airport. So these protocols were made. We pushed for the fact that, look, let's open up, do the following masking, all that. You guys are all aware of all that. The controversy came on the middle seat. So our recommendation first was keep the middle to get confidence going. Like you said, public confidence is the most important factor for anybody, especially for your sector. That there was this whole thing, a meeting, one whole meeting. It was a little testy, but we stressed, look, if you are going to have, and the airlines were at that time thinking that, we have so much overload but that overload was actually for the first 5-6 days because people had to go home, not because that it was going to be sustained. So we said, don't compromise that. Anyway, we told them that if you have to, the middle person must have a full PPE. The other two, masking and stuff like that, no eating, no drinking water allowed, because many times you have to take out your mask. And then one of the most dangerous things, if you're probably aware of it, is if you're going to drink from a bottle, many people will get that fluid in the back of their throat and cough. And that's the worst thing you can do if you were a carrier of the virus, because that would just throw out a burst. So, in spite of the fact that we insisted that the airlines turn up their air exchange systems, no matter how much it cost them in fuel, also the fact that the downstreaming of the air volume should be high, so that we got it started. Okay. Then, of course, till today, as you know, the load factor, except for some little trips like going to Goa for the Christmas holidays or things like that, usually it's not overburdened yet. But what was disappointing is all the airlines took all the care about getting the people on board during the flight, during everything. But when it came to baggage on the turnstile, everything was thrown through the wind. I don't know what panic people had, that they had to be the first and crowd all around it. So you're undoing everything you were doing on the plane. So that is one suggestion I can give you, because I was in Goa myself just recently and I saw the most careless behavior. And also what's happened is that there's a big surge in Goa, and people who are coming back from Goa, there so many of them are infected. So the point basically comes back to is that there are India has managed beautifully. Our numbers are down. There was a post Diwali surge. They're down again, and we are now worried for the next week whether the post New Year factor will play a role. But as far as the airlines are concerned, you have to have that consistent perception of the passenger that you are doing everything possible for their safety. They should not get scared after an experience of flying. And like I said, you've done a great job, but you're adhering to all the protocols. But why is it that this is happening? And that's for you to find out whether it's happening everywhere or what we observed. But people are actually complaining. So for it to really get to where it should get today, because there are enough safety features that if you're masked, you've got a shield, you don't drink, and you eat and use the toilet before you get on board. This is the advisory. It should work. But what you can do as an organization is to get data, hard data, to say, are there reports of people who have flown? What percentage of them ever got an infection after that? So it's very hard to find out. But somebody put out a data internationally, and even if it's not 100% correct, but it gives you a perception that in 7,700 passengers, there was one possible transmission. Now that's not a bad risk to take, because the virus is everywhere. So I'm saying, if you could some reliably give some indication to the flyers or potential flyers to say, look, this is what our experience is. It's not been reported to us. We have requested everybody that if you post flight, if you have got the infection, please report to us. Please it's something like I'm saying, confidence building, which may help. I don't know if you're doing it already or not, because I haven't taken an airline flight. But I'll tell you, to compliment the women pilots, when I came back from Goa, that was one of the smoothest landing I've experienced. So that means that gender equality is, of course, on everybody's mind. It's always pleasant to work with the opposite gender, as it keeps life alive. But maybe men are scared that women will overtake them, which is very possible, because by nature of the function of a woman, of multitasking, is puts them in a very unique position to actually face challenges, anticipate challenges. I mean, if you're bringing up a child, man, your anticipatory senses are 10 times that of any man that I know. I mean, I can tell you by experience. But so the basic thing is that the grit, the ability, and now the desire to be equal and even be more has done some delightful stuff. So women are everywhere. They are on the march. Fighter pilots, all the press. So they have made the transition from the cabin to the cockpit, and more power to you. So I think with what I heard just now and the way you are going about it, and I'm impressed by the delivery of the speakers who were before me. This is a real honor to be part of you. And if there is a specific question, I'll be happy to answer. But 7:30, I have to go to national. I can't put it down because this is DD. So if you have a couple of questions, I could answer them.
Dr. Trehan, I wanted to actually ask you about the facilitation that you have for your international patients and domestic patients who fly in. And tell us how that ecosystem has developed. It's in aviation parlance. To me, it seems like a hub and spoke system, where you are the hospital, and there are so many different service providers that enable that experience.
So that's what I was actually alluding to. That there has been a lot of thought process gone into how to interconnect everybody, and it has been working quite well actually. So then, of course, the having been thrown into the deep end by this terrible pandemic, technology also adapted itself very quickly. So if you look at the repurposing of many things, including the pods in which we transport infected patients today, they were very simple before. They didn't have all these other sort of sensors and everything inside them. So they were repurposed very quickly. Now we have them for our ambulances, and we fly in patients unless they are on a ventilator or on a very high volume of oxygen, which is not possible to do in a pod. Besides that, everybody can be transported if need be. So everybody has come together in the sense, like I said, from security to going through to the counters, through the line for the baggage, getting onto the plane, transport from the terminal to your buses. Everything was worked out, and it's working. I can tell you it's working. But as I told you, the only weak spot today is the turnstile. So if you can figure out a way where there is some way of tagging that seat number so and so and so will get their baggage first, then so and so will come second, and that's regulated. Because everybody, this is the interesting part. You fly for many hours, sitting in a seat belted, but the moment the plane lands and it's not even come to a spot, everybody wants to stand up. I mean, this is human nature, because I don't know what the panic is, but it's there. So you have to deal with it. You have to pre-warn, prepare for it, and say, this is going to happen on the turnstile. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not want you to break the protocol for your own safety. This is going to happen. I don't know if it's happening or not, but I can tell you what I see at the airports. So that's my only suggestion I can make you. The rest has worked very well. And like you said, in Delhi, we operate the airport. Medanta operates the airport medical services also. So we can actually integrate every part of it, from getting people who need help, people who are incapacitated, people who are just not able to walk the distance, people with heart disease. So we have been able to do all that and provide that safety. But that was all rigorous protocol and then enforcing it properly. So I think that everything has a solution. I understand what is happening to your sector. I mean, we also suffered, but I must say, our healthcare workers, the frontline workers, along with security forces, everybody has done such a tremendous job, because in the beginning we thought it was 3 months. It is 10 months and counting. and we don't know when it's going to come to an end. But in the
Yes.
meantime, don't let your guard down. Vaccine is around the corner. Everybody should be able to be vaccinated in the 6 to 7, 8 months. I mean, it's a long wait still, but I am sure that the supplies of vaccine will double and triple in the coming 2, 3 months. So we may not have to wait for that long, because India has the capacity to inoculate people at a much more rigorous pace than many other countries. We have so much practice. We are in our election practice. All these things are coming handy. And you know that there's these dry runs, as we call them. People are saying, what is it meant for? It's actually a great, like mock drills you do in your sector. Exactly, that's what it is. So I think it is well planned, and I must compliment the government here also. The fact that they have been pretty uh, overbearingly controlling every movement in this field. I'm sure you can hear the ring from Doordarshan. So I'll excuse myself. But
Yes.
I'll tell you, it was a real pleasure. My compliments to all of you, and keep on trucking.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trehan. It's a lot that we have learned. And Kiran, I have to do this follow-up question with you. It's all about the airports and how the baggage, I mean, there's pandemonium apparently at the baggage claims. Kiran, are you on? Kiran Jain? Oh.
No, it's okay. I just have to unmute myself.
Well, Kiran.
Yeah, well, it's first of all a great pleasure to be on this webinar, and absolutely right. I somehow knew, that whole allusion to the baggage belt, and obviously the question would come to the one airport operator that's on the panel. But just taking from what Dr. Trehan was talking about, that something that we have really learned, right, is this whole idea of, how do you turn this movement of physical to digital? Because that's essentially, what he was alluding to without really saying it. What we have learned after this is that really the only way to have this seamless, safe operations, get everybody moving with the right distance, etc., is basically to control. Now, how can you control? You can only control if through discipline, which of course we all know that, we have learned a lot about discipline. But when it comes to travel, it is most critical that we try and digitize every movement, whether it is, from the process of coming into the airport, checking in, it's contactless, you don't touch anything, to getting onto the aircraft, is it automatic gates? Again, it is touchless. And then, it is sequenced by an alert. This is technology that is coming in. And as far as Noida International Airport is concerned, Ranjana, we are very, very particular about making sure that our airport, as we design it, as we implement processes through it, that the focus is actually on making it a truly digital airport. And perhaps probably the first digital airport in India. Now, digital does not mean just one mode. Digital is every mode. Passenger, as he goes through the terminal as a passenger for the airline, and then when he becomes a customer in the commercial space, and then when he becomes a customer of the airline, that entire experience of the human should be contactless, touchless. Even at the bottom, which is basically the baggage, that too, it has to be digitized. And if we are able to marry these two movements, that is where you will know that Kiran sitting on seat 15A is able to, her bag will be at the belt at whatever 602, so all this is put through only if the person is cooperative, and B, if we have the technology as an airport to implement this. I'll tell you, in our experience right now, we've had phenomenal discussions both with the government and obviously with the airlines, which is truly, it's the marriage between the three that's going to make a success of this. And so far, I can tell you that we have every intention of delivering, as we say, executing with absolute Swiss precision and producing a very warm airport. absolutely digitized. Every single process of the journey will be. And I think once we get used to that, which I believe COVID has taught all of us to be very good with our digital gadgets. We've all heard this, all the airlines are saying that, passengers up to 85 to 90% are now actually either home checked in or web check-in. There's very little interaction at the typical ticket counter. So I think we're on our way. The mindset is there to take this on. And as, the builders and providers of the next brand new airport, because it is greenfield, we can actually build the infrastructure to do this. So, I would say that we are extremely positive that this is what the future is going to be, and we will deliver it.
But tell me something, you have actually dived in more or less into the deep end trying to set up de novo, this greenfield airport. What has been your experience through the last 1 year in getting regulatory approvals or finding the people who will, who necessarily have to take part in it or be employed? How has that whole experience of actually getting it from one stage to the next, your point where you are now through the last 1 year?
So I'll tell you, I would probably be the first skeptic because, I've been with the organization for a year, which is sort of when we started. And imagine I am exactly that person who was hired and sort of literally ended up in the frying pan because suddenly everything started happening and COVID became a bigger problem than what we all thought it was actually going to be. And that was in the beginning of the year. So how we have worked, I salute actually the government and the support that we have received, whether it's been from the central government or if it's been from the state of Uttar Pradesh. The support we have received has been phenomenal. I give a lot of credit to our quick learning brains, where we have all had the ability to train ourselves to work through, all kinds, whether it's Teams or Zoom or, whatever it might be, Skype, etc. We all adapted very quickly. We became very proficient in sharing information. In the case of our airport design, actually, I'll tell you, Ranjana, the entire design of the airport, whether it had to do with the physical structuring or it had to do with the operational structuring and processes for all of that was done this year online, engaged with teams from around the world. Of course, I never slept because the day started at 6 o'clock in the morning and it could go on till 11 o'clock. That was just a good day. And that was because everyone was all over the world. But technology, stood by our side. The positive of this sort of interaction is it's very precise. It's limited to a time. Decisions, by the way, were very quick because you had to do the pre-thinking. You did not have time, too much time to waste just having too much, back and forth, because essentially everybody was on a time block, right? Because it was from all over the world. So I think that was one of the most positive takeaways from this experience, was the idea of time management and how actually things can be done. On the other hand, now that we come regularly to office with all the COVID measures in place here in Delhi, it's actually a different thing to have your team around you, And we had hired people through the process, but all of us were working from various parts of the world, including India, various parts of the region. But slowly, as January has dawned, we have our people coming in, but now we are managing the workspace where only, a certain percentage of people can come into the office and a certain works from home.
Yes.
The overall experience has been very enlightening. I'm amazed with sort of the zeal and, the ability of the human spirit to, just continue to persevere forward. So, considering that, I have immense faith that, we as human beings have the ability to do the right thing, which I believe most of us do. And therefore, a pandemic like COVID, that might be happening now, 2020, 2021. But this is preparing us for all kinds of other things that, me and you don't know are going to come, right? So I think this has been a very, very good lesson in our lives. And our kids have learned about it all around us. Everyone has learned. So I think we are better prepared than we ever were, or ever imagined we could be. So I'm extremely positive about, how we should foresee things moving in the future, even in our own sector. Many times I'm asked, how can you what do you think? You guys are building a brand new airport, and look what's happened to, traffic numbers and aircraft movements. But honestly, I have immense faith in the turnaround story, and this is not the first time. I wish I could say it'll be the last time. I'm not a prophecy seeker, but it may not be. So this faith in, like I said, the human spirit, the resilience of the Indian market. We come back very quickly. Even today, the aircraft movements, with again the help of the government, with the steady increase in operations, you can see the load factors with the airlines are going up. So by 2024, you will have a very digital, very eco-friendly, very process-driven airport delivered to you right outside New Delhi. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. And may I now turn to our domestic sector? Usha Padhi, are you here on?
Yes.
Usha, now you are, I think, presiding or in charge of the UDAN program, the Regional Connectivity Program. Is that right?
Yes.
So tell us something about that. What is the design of this program, and where have we reached up until now?
Okay. First of all, good evening and good morning wherever you are accordingly. And very, very happy to be here. Before the UDAN design, I will mention that I am not here by design. It is by default. My secretary
you're by
has
default.
been.
And Usha, we welcome you because you're here
Thank
by
you
default.
so much. I'm very honored to be here. My secretary has conveyed his wishes. He could not be there. So as I am holding his fort, so he has asked me to be here. It's very difficult to step into his shoes, but as women, all of us know that it is, we have learned how to get into the shoes of others, but not only that, but we can also fulfill all the responsibilities. So I am here on his behalf. Once again, I wish you a very, very happy new year. When Radha ma'am called me and asked me to attend this, I was just thinking what I should be telling, and I asked her, candidly, please tell me what is expected from me. Because the relevance of this webinar is very, very high. When Dr. Trehan was saying, talking, I wanted to tell that I was the same person who used to disturb him in the midnight and ask that you have to sign this SOP, or you have to send these letters, or we had continuous meetings with various experts in the health group. It is not only UDAN. The journey for last year has been very, very incredible. The year was not very good, but I see it in a very optimistic way, but because it was very, very learning for all of us, very, very learning. Even sitting here, I was just sending some messages because UK passengers are held up in Delhi airport, where we have to ensure that how smoothly they will be having the institutional quarantine, which is again put into courts now. So every day it was not a story like we lived ever, happily ever after. Everything, every day, something new coming in, emerging it. India had very stringent lockdown, but believe me, the civil aviation never stopped working because the lockdown also ensured that the mode of transportation was civil aviation, and the cargo facilities from the abroad and within the country to move all the medical essentials, including the PPE kits and entire ICMR's test materials, which was not there. ICMR had only few labs, and we had to help them establish more than 300 labs within those 3 months. So Lifeline UDAN was taken off at that point of time. So we had put in place some system. I'm mentioning this because this helped us to immediately take the measures. Helped us, having an advantage of early mover, where we started putting all the SOPs in place when we started moving these cargoes, and then this helped us to resume the operations domestically by middle of May. And we started the international operation to bring all our Indian fraternity, which were stranded outside. So Vande Bharat mission. So we had this experience and we implemented that. And this helped us to gradually open up our commercial operation. Of course, we have not opened the border for regular commercial international operations, but we have explored the possibilities of point-to-point bilateral bubbles between various countries. We have more than 25 countries which are already there. And believe me, this has helped the aviation industry to sustain. I'm not saying that it is very, very hard hit industry, or the aviation, tourism, and hospitality were the most hit sector due to the pandemic. But at the same time, they emerged as the most resilient sector. The courage, the sheer grit of the airlines, you can see that today we have the operations of more than 60%, though we have opened the capacity of 80%. If you see the same figure of the last November, December or January of 2019, 20, so there have been a good growth of passenger. One thing we have established through our SOPs and guidelines confidently tell that the trust of the passengers have come back. We are able to make passengers travel. No doubt, anywhere you ask, they say the aviation is the safest mode of transportation. Dr. Trehan was saying the SOP we have brought in, the SOP was very, very meticulously worked. Ranjana ji talked of the National Air Transport Facilitation Committee, which was reactivated. Okay, we have that committee at the level of the Cabinet Secretary. It was reactivated because it is normally for the cross-sectoral thing we will be discussing. But this was regularly met. Every fortnightly, we made this committee to sit, iron out all the issues, and take up all the inputs from the experts. We brought in many things, ensured that this SOP is there, put in place. The entire ecosystem will take the challenges of this virus. That was to push back, and then immediately to make sure that the passengers have the confidence and the safety of the passengers are taken care of. The next step was to ensure that these operations are sustainable, and we make this operational adjustment, financial adjustment. At the same time, what we call new norms have been put in place. Just now, my colleague Kiran talked about the digital way of leveraging the technologies to make sure that the minimum touches are happening, or the transactions become more safe. You can see now, India never thought of having 100% web check-in during this short period. We would have taken many years to happen this, that behavioral change would have taken so much of time. Now every web check-in happens in the home, and now it is, Kiran has to think what would be, they would be doing in the counters now. They have to think of different business model and different services to be offered at the counter. Whether it is the baggage drop, whether it is about the declaration forms and the affirmative forms which they have to fill up, Air Suvidha app you might have seen. So we have been developing a lot of technological based solutions to ensure that the model becomes more smart, more efficient, and this will help in long run to the aviation industries to sustain and brace themselves for the future, any of such pandemic which we will be facing, and God forbid it will not happen, but we should be having that situation in place. We have the plan. In long term, we are working with the airlines, and we have, I don't say that we have announced any bigger packages or anything of that sort, but we have been working with aviations to make sure, especially the stakeholders of the aviation sector, whether it is the airlines or airport operators or the DHAs, the MROs. So there have been a lot of rationalization of the government policies which is taking place. Whether it is ease of doing business, reducing the taxes, opening up more airspace for the operations, for the efficient operations. These are few things which we have put in place, and I hope that in long run, we are going to make this sector more vibrant and more resilient. And India is dreaming of becoming a 5 trillion economy, and without aviation being the significant player, it is not possible. It is a development engine. All of us know that it is no more only a mode of transportation. So I am very, very optimistic, and I feel that there is a huge scope, and we will seize this opportunity. Every crisis is an opportunity. That's what the spirit flown among all the panelists. So we will reinforce the aviation ecosystem, uh, and we'll make sure that the global mobility will happen. And all of us know that whatever people say that tomorrow there would be different world. Of course, if there is a post-COVID world, it is going to be different, no doubt about it, but the humans are going to be same. I mean, in everywhere I keep on telling my own people, don't lose the heart in the human spirit. The civilization has grown by mobility. We have moved from place to place, and we have created the new civilization, new ideas, new innovations. So I'm sure that that spirit of human nature, of seeing more people, mingling of cultures, would be there. So we all of us have the better future. So let us believe in that and work towards. And a special thanks to calling me here, because it's all with our fraternity, and it's always a joy to connect to all these talented women. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Usha. That was marvelous. I wanted to come back to Dr. Feng Liu, Secretary General, if you're still here. Is Secretary General ICAO still here?
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Liu, I'm curious to know, I understand that 2021 is, the ICAO has declared it to be the year of security culture. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct?
Yes, absolutely right.
So we have sort of the pandemic, which has so absorbed us completely, and now you have shifted focus to security culture. Will you tell us something about what that means exactly, security culture, and tell us about that concept?
Okay, so we're just talking about the COVID-19. That is a priority for ICAO and also priority for the global aviation sector. Meanwhile, because COVID-19 is not the only thing the industry needs to deal with. But this COVID-19 also impacts every aspect of our sector. And as a matter of fact, this year of security culture year, actually we planned to announce last year, as a matter of fact. Due to the COVID-19, and we shifted immediately the priority, and also as well as the global aviation sector. That's why, and we now announce 2021 as the year of aviation security culture year. You probably know, and our experts here, that ICAO established the first global aviation security plan.
Yes.
This aviation global security plan has the pillars, and also this global aviation security plan is followed of the first United Nations Security Council resolution 2309, which is the highest, let's say, in the UN system. Absolutely. Addressing dedicated to aviation security, is at the Security Council resolution level. So it's extremely important that member states to call on the member states' political will and political support to carry out ICAO's standards in the aviation security, and also to build global, enhance global awareness of the importance of the global of aviation security, and also to enforcement of aviation security standards. And then we need to build sort of a similar aviation safety culture in the aviation security. Yes. So that is the whole purpose. So we are going to have the campaign throughout this year in order, let's say, our aviation sector, also general public, because aviation security will impact each and passenger and also shippers. and when you're using our aviation facilities and services. So we want to everyone know aviation security is not only aviation sector's responsibility, it's everyone's responsibilities. So we want to have everyone know aviation security is part of our responsibility. And also when we are using our services and or we operate or manage aviation, we should have this mindset. And then by doing this, and we can enhance our aviation security and as one of the basis. And then we can reach objective of global aviation security plan. As I indicated, this is one of the pillar in our aviation global security plan. So I hope, let's say, India and will, also to enhance and through various campaign to enhance global aviation security awareness, and not only for our sector, but also for general public. And also, I'm glad that you raised this issue and through this webinar as well.
Oh, how marvelous. That's very interesting, actually. And now I think we should throw this open to any questions that the audience might have. Nupur, may I?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second. I'm just going to, I did get a few questions in between. This one is from Neelam Matthews for Usha, ma'am. What challenges does regional aviation face due to the pandemic?
Neelam, thanks for asking this question. The regional connectivity is the key for growth in domestic aviation sector. India has a very strong domestic market, but unfortunately, we have a lot of focus on connecting the metros. So the fruit of the air transportation growth or development has not reached everyone. When we talk here about the gender sensitivity, we should also talk about the equal rights and the regional disparities to be addressed. So the way forward is that we connect the regional airports, smaller airports, tier 3, tier 4 airports through the through various innovative way of doing things. And aviation has to be commercial. It can't be completely subsidized from the government program. So the design of the scheme has been in such a way that it becomes a virtuous cycle. That means from the very well affluent routes or the trunk routes, what we call, we collect some levy from there and we invest it in the deprived areas. It is not going to take away money anywhere. It is invested within this sector, and this regional connectivity will again bring the fillip to the trunk routes, because those passengers would be adding as if they are making the size of the pie a bigger one. So that is where it is. And of course, the pandemic has hit the trunk routes and we hit the profitability of the airlines. So the collection would be a problem. But we have, because it is completely a voluntary and consultative scheme, and airlines have been on board. And the challenges were how to make the airlines to still continue with the regional routes and connect the routes. If you see recently Darbhanga, which is a northern Bihar, which was completely a new airport, within no time, we have filled up 3 aircraft, 3 destination, and 3 more have been filed. So there has been so much of latent demand. Airlines have come up and said that, okay, we will work with you, reduce the VGF, will with less viability gap funding will start working. You give other rationalization or other benefits of the taxation. So still we will be going. So some of the routes which in difficult time also we could recommence, and I'm sure that it is not an easy challenge to address in no time, but we are working with the airlines and we'll ensure that all these routes would be coming up gradually. And as we compare the outreach and impact of this scheme, this is uncomparable globally. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I have another one from a journalist from UNI, Ajit. This one can also be taken by Usha ma'am only. Is the government considering vaccinate and travel for international inbound passengers?
Ajitji, I would like to mention that we have a complete, specific priority framework who would be getting the vaccination by the Government of India. The Ministry of Health has worked. So we have to have that patience, whether the international passengers who would be coming, they would be offered to have the tests, and we have different protocols. And I'm sure everybody's turn will come as the vaccination numbers would be increasing, and we'll broad base this vaccination program. But for immediate purpose, it is the priority population, the front line workers who have to get these vaccinations. I'm sure that the things will improve as we open up the boundaries. We will have different set of guidelines for the incoming passengers also. Thank you.
Nupur
Thank you,
here,
ma'am.
I would like to just add to what Usha has
Sure,
just said.
sure.
So
Sure, ma'am.
basically, here in ICAO also under the card 3, what we are really examining is that how we can have a kind of a travel passport for the travelers. And this is something which is that WHO is also working, and WHO is also working on an e-vaccination certificate, which will have interoperability as well as governance and security provisions so that it is accepted internationally. So many airlines all over the world are saying that they will allow travelers to travel once they have a vaccination, a certificate with them, like they have it for the yellow fever. But definitely, as of now, as Usha said, it will take time. And till the time that we have accessibility to vaccination to a majority of the population, it is not possible to make it compulsory for travelers to have a vaccine certificate, and we may have to continue down the same bumpy road with COVID testing and protocols of quarantines, as well as also the fact that same social distancing, mask, etc. We may have to continue with it for some more time till vaccines become available. And what ICA would be doing is to make it again harmonize the approach towards vaccinated travelers all over the world. So this initiative ICAO is taking. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shafali ma'am, so much. Um, uh, um, uh, we are a little pressed for time, hence we will not be able to take any more questions. May I please now request Chitra Sarkar to give the vote of thanks and the closing. Chitra ma'am, over to you now.
Thank you, Nupur. Namaste, everyone. I'm sure that our audience joins me in saying a big thank you to our distinguished speakers for sharing a wide range of information and views with us. I'm gratified to learn that they look at the coming year with optimism, and they all believe that that 2021 will not be quite as difficult as the last year was. Dr. Fang Lu, Secretary General of ICAO, encouraged women in aviation to take a leadership role in the recovery of the aviation sector, and has confirmed to us that the current year will focus on aviation security. Dr. Shefali Juneja, India's representative to ICAO, explained the dilemma that is facing ICAO today, which is whether to open borders right away or to wait for the intensity of COVID-19 to reduce. But she is optimistic that air routes will open sooner rather than later. Dr. Naresh Trehan, Chairman and MD of Medanta Medicity, felt that India had done a great job in handling the pandemic, and detailed protocols have been implemented in the aviation sector. Ms. Kiran Jain, Chief of Delhi Noida International Airport, said that the new airport will be totally digitized and technologically advanced. Srimati Usha Padhi, Joint Secretary, Civil Aviation, confirmed that the ministry continued to work tirelessly right through the pandemic, which helped in resuming domestic air operations in May, and the Vande Bharat operations for stranded Indian nationals very soon thereafter. In her opinion, the aviation industry responded with grit and courage and has won the trust of all the passengers. So a big vote of thanks to our distinguished panel and also to Dr. Ranjana Gupta, Ranjana, to Dr. Ranjana Kaul for her excellent moderation. Mrs. Radha Bhatia, Chairman Bird Group and President of Women in Aviation India chapter, we are grateful to you and to the entire Bird Group team for giving us this opportunity to hear these global experts and learn from their assessment of the coming year. To our audience, we appreciate your joining us today and for the very thought-provoking questions that you have posed the panel. We have one request. Just before the webinar closes, you will see a feedback form on the screen. Please take a moment to answer the questions. Your replies will greatly help us in formulating our future webinars. Happy 2021, everyone. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Chitra. That's wonderful. And thank you to all your ladies, all the wonderful panelists, and good wishes to you, Dr. Faglu, for the rest of your term and the future ahead, surely in aviation. Thank you very much for being with us and patiently going through this for the last hour and a half.
I would like to also thank you. Thank everyone. And also, I would like to wish you very happy, healthy, prosperous new year of 2021. I'm sure 2021 will be better and brighter than 2020.
Well,